All right, check 1 2, live from Pivovar. Please bear with us as we adjust our live settings. If you are here for the triple option, don't worry, we'll start just a little bit of a shorter show today. I'm alongside Zach Burke.
That's me. Oh, there we go. That's me. Test, check. Just making sure that we sound great. I mean, my voice always sounds great.
But yeah, it absolutely does. Okay.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Thank you for joining us. Yes, those of you who have waited, we are on a little bit late. This is Zach Burke, a very old friend of mine. He's like a baby brother to me.
Yeah, I'll accept that. I like that. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, he's like a baby brother to me. You started out interning at our station when I was probably a year in. I think maybe a year and a half, and you and I worked together there for quite some time.
About 10 years?
About a decade together, and then you left before shit got real. I'm just out
at the right time, baby?
Yeah, you did. But if you're wondering where we are, this lovely place behind us is Pivovar in downtown Waco. We are right near the silos, and it opens up at 4. We're going to do this show and 365 Sports from here today. So we hope you enjoyed it. It's a really cool place. It's a Czech-inspired restaurant and bar. Zach, have you ever been here before?
I have not.
You've not? They have, and you'll see the executive chef walking behind us here in a second. They have schnitzel here, and because that's Czech, in German. But it is very good. And the beer, if you can see over here to this side of me, they make all the beer here on site. We are actually sitting in front of 2 empty mash barrels here, which is where they make it. So it's a pretty cool place, especially really cool for a guy like me to be, as you know. I enjoy the
accoutrements.
Yes, and I'll just call it the alcoholic arts.
I like that.
Yeah, I do. We have a lot to talk about today, and it is because the college football playoff is changing before it's even changed already. And Zach and I will talk about that in a second. Zach now works at Rogue Media, who is our podcast partners and the ones who are putting on this event. It's a big day for Rogue. You've got different events going on all over the city, but this is a cool thing for us to be here. And again, it's not open right now, but we had to do a test run before we do a 3-hour show and make sure that it works so that, we didn't embarrass ourselves or Pivovar, which could honestly happen.
Well, but it's not going to be because of the setup.
No, absolutely not. But Zach, you and I, we've been through some times. I want some people to know we have been through like late nights, like working.
A lot,
you guys being still at the radio station when we came back from the Panhandle doing a game one time because you had so much work to do.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting that lasted until about 2:00 in the morning.
The best part about that is that we would have the meeting and then even after it was done of just being like, all right, that's cool. I'll see y'all later. And had to go just the quick trip back to the office there in the back and keep working.
Yeah, it was, and look, it was one of those things that was very necessary to have.
Yeah.
It was, look, because we had been on a trip, and we had a coworker at the time, and I'm not going to bring up him by name, but he drove everyone insane, like absolutely insane. And I had been with him for 3 straight days.
Yep.
And I was at about I don't know if anybody in the chat room's ever had this where you've had, there's the person you avoid in the office as much as you can, but then there's a scenario where you are in a bunker with them for a couple days, and this was my situation. And I wonder if you remember the phone call because we were in Seymour, Texas.
Yeah.
And we're having trouble connecting because if people don't know where Seymour, Texas is, if you know where East Jesus Nowhere is, it's in the middle of it.
You got to keep going.
You got to keep going.
Past.
It's a little past East Jesus Nowhere. So we're just in the middle of nowhere. And so they'd kind of given us, it wasn't a phone line because back in those days you had to use a POTS, plain on television, like old school phone line, or we had like a backup system, which was pretty complicated to set up. I got it done in a place where the internet is not strong.
Non-existent.
But
it's funny you bring up that, and I don't mean to cut off that story, because the other one that I remember that I actually told recently involves you too. And it was, it was another high school football game, and I don't remember where exactly it was, but the unit we were using went out on us, so we had to do the game by self. Like you couldn't hear me, so I couldn't cue you back from breaks or anything like that. But we didn't have a phone in the studio that we were doing the game at, so I would have to, during the breaks, I'd have to run a minute of commercials, run into the studio next to you to give you cues down the phone, and then run back in time to pod you up.
So anyway, those are the kind of things that Zach and I have been through. But I'm there, and like this guy is like really have been grating on my nerves. Like we had been in Humboldt, Texas, which is by Houston, and then we're in the Panhandle, which is not quite as far away as you can get in this state, but it's like one of the longest things. We had to like drive halfway there, spend a night in a hotel, and then drive the rest of the way in the morning to get there by 2 o'clock to set up a show to do in this like nowhere. So we've been through a lot. But yeah, it is what it is. But do you remember like how unhinged I was on the phone call where like looking back on it now, especially like 14 years later, I think Paul's lost it. I think there was a conversation at the studio where and Jason got together and you're like, hey, listen, I think we he might just be out in the wilderness by the end of this broadcast. Just Smokey, like, hey, we lost Paul in the middle somewhere. He is in the wilds of West Texas, and I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, no, it was weird because usually if we had to make calls on stuff after a game, I would have to call and I would talk to you mainly. That's another thing I remember about that is I talked to Smokey most of that trip back, and that was something that just didn't you just kind of know like, oh, okay, something's a little different here.
It was, and I wasn't like mad at anyone, but the guy who was bothering me. But I was so emotionally broken. Yeah. Like it was just wild. So we had that. So Jack, like, just so you know, that when you hear me, and I may rip on Zach during this time, and Zach might get in the regular rotation of co-host, depending on how he does today.
Ooh.
But I will get Zach close to tears sometimes and how I can rip on him because I know everything about him.
He does.
And he knows everything about me. So we might cry together on this podcast. But Zach, so we are about to have a college football playoff expansion.
We are.
Something that we, as college football fans, begged for nigh on forever. Yeah. I mean, forever we've begged for it, and we finally have a legitimate, real playoff. I'm not completely knocking the 14 playoff, but let's face it, it was it was kind of silly. It was one of those things that the powers that be were like, okay, you want one, shut up about it. Here's a playoff, and you're like, yeah, but could you make it a little bit bigger? And they're like, no, we won't.
Yeah. No. This is what you're stuck with for a while.
This is what you're getting. Look, you eat your vegetables and take your medicine and, take a bath and go to sleep, children. You don't get to make the decision. These are grown-up decisions. So they expanded to 12. And I really do like the system they have with 12, outside of it including the current bowl games, which I think are antiquated. Yeah. But now, because of the ACC and the ACC, Big Ten, and and the Pac-10, and Pac-12, whatever it is, the Pac, doing the alliance, this got delayed. And so now, because it got delayed, we are in a situation where the powers that be have to make a TV deal with ESPN, and they're already deciding to expand the playoff to 14 teams, which would include 3 SEC automatic buys, 3 Big Ten automatic buys, 2 each from the ACC and Big 12, 1 group of 5, Notre Dame if they're in the top 14, which, here's the thing, if anybody's in the top 14, shouldn't they be in the 14 playoff? There's where it becomes not a playoff, but an invitation.
Exactly. And that was the thing that was, so does Notre Dame, and I read and looked into them where I guess they would count as that Power 5 then, the automatic qualifier there for that. The thing that was weird to me is they knew, obviously, when the playoff deals and stuff were coming up, why not just? It's weird to me that you come out with 12 and then you're so quickly like, oh, we're talking about 14 already. But I don't tend to like where you get so many automatic bids, just because I understand that the Big Ten and SEC have the teams that they do, and that they're going to have better teams usually for the most part year in and year out. So I get why they would have more automatic qualifiers, but I think you get to a point of where you can just have too many, and then it just takes away from the process as a whole. Because I think the original 14-team plan before this one was that the Big Ten and the SEC were going to get 4 automatic qualifiers. I mean, some years you can't tell me that the 4th best team in the SEC is necessarily deserving of that or would be a top 14 team.
So here's my question, because if you want the top 14, just take the top 14.
Exactly.
No automatic qualifiers. And if you're so gigantic conferences like everyone is, you'll get your teams and you'll probably get more. Like, the Big Ten or SEC will probably get 4. Like, they're going to rotate off 4 or 5, and then they have the 3 at-large spots. But that's the thing. If you don't put automatic qualifiers on this thing, if you don't, it's probably going to work out the way you want it to most of the time anyway. And the scenario they're thinking of, look, say there's not 3 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten. The SEC will get 3 teams every year. No problem. They'll always do, especially as big as that conference is and who the teams are that are in it. Like, there's not going to be a scenario where the SEC doesn't have 3 teams.
Agreed.
Well, let's just say that there's a year where the Big Ten doesn't have 3 teams that qualify. Well, that should tell you that the conference isn't very good. Right? I mean, like, it's going to happen. So, like, okay, so the Big 12 gets 3 that year. It just... What will make it better is this, and the other conferences, and everybody has to agree to this, otherwise the Big Ten and SEC can go, well, we don't really need you for the next phase of college football, so we're going to break off. Now, I do think that there's a lot of things at play here that are not football, because if I'm Duke, or a basketball school in the ACC or Big 12, and that really, wins a lot of basketball championships, and the 2 big conferences tell me they don't want me involved for football, then while I might have this tenuous partnership with them at basketball, then we're going to start butting heads on things we don't need. So the SEC and Big Ten know that, and they know that they need everybody to make this work and make it to where the nationwide fan base is going to be happy. Now, look, I was not here for this because I was getting engaged, but at Big 12 Media Days 2 years ago, Bill Hancock sat down with Smokey and Craig, and Craig asked him point blank, hey, what about the future of where there's only 2 power conferences? And he's like, that's fine, people will watch. And I'm very glad he's retiring, because that's the attitude that we don't need. And what I think about the 14-team playoff, while I'm excited that there'll be more teams in the playoffs and, there'll be more home games is better for me. I don't like neutral site games in college football until you're in you should have 1, and it should be at the very end of the year.
Yeah.
Or 2 if you count the championship game. And I'm not even nuts about the championship game being in an NFL stadium. I'd rather the championship game be in the home stadium of the number 1 team, because I want more. Like, college football is about college campuses. Well, it's not about that.
And not to kind of take away, but to prove that point in a bit, because I've listened to you guys here lately talking about the NCAA football video game. Like, that's part of the difference there of why it needs to be a different feel, because college football as a whole, like you said, just has that different kind of just feel and atmosphere about it in a way. So I get the sense of it being, it's more about pageantry and just more about the atmosphere. So I don't know about if I completely get on board with the number 1 team hosting, but at least I understand where you're coming from there with it. I get how it would fit.
I'd rather have that.
Yeah, I get how it fits, though. And, like, I'm with you. It makes more sense to do that than to play in some random giant NFL stadium.
Yeah, look, because here's the other thing is you're going to get schools of different sizes.
Yeah.
And so I've seen this by going to the Big 12 championship game where, look, if you have Texas and Oklahoma, the stadium's going to be filled.
Yeah.
And, look, you have Baylor, Oklahoma State a couple years ago, which is a fantastic game, a legendary game, a historic game. It had a great ending. It was a great game. Like, no matter what you are as a football fan, if you watch that game, you're like, man, this game was great. But, like, Oklahoma State's, considerably larger than Baylor. Baylor's a smaller school. And it's just like where you look, all the fans of both teams came out to that, right? And the stadium was like barely, like just underneath the capacity. And that's where, like, look, if you're playing the Big 12 championship, if you had that in Stillwater or in Waco, like that thing would be pouring out, and you wouldn't have this like, don't show the upper reaches of the stadium kind of a thing because it's going to be empty. So those are the things that I want. I want more home games. I think the bowl system is very antiquated, and I think that the New Year's Six, while they've been great events, I think they need to figure out a new way to do those things because, it doesn't make sense to me, especially as you get into like a round-by-round playoff, to have teams, because you could have, at the Rose Bowl, you could wind up having, NC State and Michigan going to California to play in a playoff game there, and I like that to me just doesn't sit well.
Well, for me in those matchups, and it's me being kind of old school, I obviously still think of just the Rose Bowl as a Pac-12 Big Ten matchup. So like Michigan going there just kind of makes sense there. But you're right, when it comes to making people travel. To do that, it's Michigan will travel, NC State, all the way to California. It makes me think back, and I know I'm going back to it, but remember when UConn was in one of the New Year's Six games? This was back, oh my goodness, it had to be late 2010s. And they had to return they couldn't sell enough tickets to be able to go to the New Year's Six game. Like it was UConn at a New Year's Six game, but it was because it was being held in a ridiculously large stadium. So. There are things that you're going to need to figure out, and with the travel, I think there's ways to make it better. Maybe it is the home and away. I do like at least that with the 12-team playoff, and even with the 14 with the buys, that it seems like it's going to at least get us some more of those home field. But as you said, we're still trying to find a way to shoehorn in the New Year's Six there.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's just such a weird thing. I just think you don't even know how we could watch 2 years of the 12-team playoff and be like, hey, a couple little minor tweaks and let's keep this going right here. And then we get to a 14-team playoff and you're like, yeah, it's going to feel, because it's an invitational, maybe a little overstuffed to me. Or if you're going to go to 14, to me, just make it 16. Just make it 16. Make it 16. Get rid of the buys.
I think
this 4 weeks of a bracket and move on with your life.
I'm a college basketball fan.
Yes.
I like that. I don't think that the tournament needs to expand any further.
Yeah. By the way, a college basketball fan who has never beaten me in a bracket. I'm just going to put you that. I'm going to put that.
There wasn't 1 year?
It was not 1 year. You've
You sure there's not 1 year?
There might be 1 year, but I'm.
Just give me 1 year. That's fine.
I pretty much dominated you.
That is true. I would.
We'll do one this year that's just you and me.
Watch you mop the floor with me.
That way nobody has to scroll through where we might wind up. We can put up on the screen Paul and Zach.
All right, but it doesn't need to expand, but I've always just liked that it's the conference tournament winner has the bye, and then it's the at-large after that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something like the top 14 or top 16 should be the top 14 or top 16.
Yeah. But by the way, I'm well aware that this pullover here, Miss Quarter Zip, on this camera angle that we're pretty close here, makes me look like a melted strawberry ice cream cone. I get it. I'm aware. I know. I'm looking at the shots, and I'm.
I don't know. From where I sit, I think you look good.
Oh, thank you. Well,
no
look, Garrett's down there, and he's at nowhere.
I'm good.
At nowhere, he's down here. He at no point did they say, "Man, Paul, that is not your color."
I don't know. Maybe Broncos assistant coach, but I don't think that it's not your.
Yeah, no, I'm like.
No, what are y'all going to do with Russell Wilson this offseason?
I've got a real high school gym teacher that's trying to look good for a minute before he has to go back. That's my vibe is today.
You're rocking it though. I like it.
I'm trying to. I should if you just walked in and if you took all the cameras away and saw us talking, you'd be like, why is that guy doing an assistant coach interview here at Pivo Bar?
It's open. Don't they usually have those in the athletic department or something?
What's he doing? Just sitting up by these mash tanks, talking to this kid about the JV basketball job.
How do you feel about 5-man weave? Do you run it? How often in practice?
Let me tell you what we do at our school, son.
I read once that Phil Jackson saged all the locker rooms the year the Bills won, or the Bulls won. Do you do that as well?
Yeah, I do. Oh, yeah, that's funny. Do you have any? Have you ever been in a job interview and do you have any questions for me? And then the first one time, and of course it's been a long time since I've really had a job interview. We just kind of got this job, but before I got this job, I did an interview for a job in San Antonio. At the end of it, I was ready for it. Do you have any questions for me? And I had a couple good questions in the barrel, and then after he said anything else, and my brain was just
no.
I just thought of hey, so in Return of the Jedi, it didn't bother you that it ended with a teddy bear picnic? It kind of I always liked it when I was a kid, but now as I'm older, feels like maybe there should have been something else. And that's the the question that's in my mind, or
But did you ask it?
No, I did not. Or and then then
well,
I started,
hold on. Did you get the job?
Well, here's what happened. COVID. COVID happened. So
okay.
I did not get the job because here I am.
You can blame it on that. I think it was because you didn't share the Star Wars story.
I didn't be listen, you would think that Darth Vader would be mad about the whole having to wear a mask thing.
How cozy do you think it is inside of a dead Tauntaun?
Yeah, that's what, those are the things I'm thinking at the end of a job interview. But I just think that there's we're at this flashpoint of college athletics where, look, Friday, essentially the death blow was struck to the NCAA in its current form when the federal government tells you those rules you made, you are not allowed. They're completely unenforceable. You cannot enforce them. They are a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. They've always been a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. So, and the weird thing about the NCAA is they keep saying hey, we need the government to intervene. We need this. We need this. And the government is telling them look, we will only help you if you come up with a plan that we can provide oversight to. If you want us to do it,
we'll do that too.
They won't. No, they can't. They're not capable of it. Oh, yeah. They're not capable of it. We can't make decisions on things that we need, absolutely need fundamental things. We can't get these two sides in a room and get them to agree on here's how we should fund, schools, water cleanup, roads, these things. We're having fights over that, who our actual enemies are. We don't really agree on that anymore. Those things used to be pretty basic, day one government things. Hey, Russia's the bad guys. Pretty clear day one thing. And then now it's gotten murky and it's very confusing. So if I'm the Senate, I'm hey, listen, I've been arguing with this guy about who the bad guy is, and you want me to fix your problem?
Exactly.
I can't. I cannot. I don't have the brain space.
We got a little bit too much going on.
You were at the hearing. Half of them asked stupid questions about what happens when my team loses to this other team and why is that those are things that happen. So let's just stop and fix it. And Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are, we had Tim Brando on the show yesterday. As we do all the time. I think you probably heard that when you were editing it. But Tim Brando said, look, they are taking the lead on this. And I believed him. He knows. I am concerned, though, that feet get dragged enough other places that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti can be all right, listen, here's I think of Matt Damon at Ocean's 11, you're either in or you're out right now. And that's what they're going to have to do. And because of the way that academia works and that schools work and these things drag on, that there's going to be schools that get left behind because they're I don't know. Well, okay, let's get a committee meeting. We have the committee meeting to prep for the committee meeting, and then we'll have this other meeting and then this. And then Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti will be look, we had 15 people come aboard. We don't need any more. Whatever it is. I know that's just an arbitrary number. So yeah. By the way, in the chat room, they're saying make 8 wins for a bowl game, get rid of some bowl games. I'm all for that.
No, I'm all for that too, because that's been the problem forever. When they started having so many bowl games, you had to take 5 and 7 teams. That should be clue number one of maybe we have too many bowl games. Yeah. It's just it's weird to, not saying that some of the teams didn't 6-6 being 500. It's a little kind of cherry on top of you get to play an extra game.
Yeah.
Even 7-5. I want it to be you accomplish something. You don't need to go out and win your conference title to go out and enjoy playing in the Cheez-Its Bowl. But it should be something more than just, hey, you know what? Y'all lost more games than you won. But we'll still kind of, we got to find somebody to play these games. So are you cool for it? Oh, you don't want to play? Here, let's find another 5 and 17 or another 5 and 17.
I think they just need to like just shave off the bottom, get rid of some of the ones. Well, and here's the other thing. I think you need to set what I call what will now be called the Pop-Tart Bowl standard of, look, if you're going to be a bowl game that doesn't matter, you better put on a show.
They did.
And they put on a show. We covered that game. I don't think you were at the radio station. I think you'd left already.
Yeah.
But Baylor played North Carolina in that game.
Yeah, I was already going.
Yeah, and so Baylor played North Carolina. We went, Craig and Smokey and I, and we covered it in Orlando.
It was the Camping one.
It was
then,
the Camping
wasn't
World
it?
Bowl.
No,
then.
I think I was still there. Okay.
So no offense to Camping World.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a
life-size Pop-Tart.
Yeah,
that you could eat.
Yeah, an RV mascot that you could jump into. Like that. That to me would be the deal.
So you essentially want, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but all these bowl games to be like the Nickelodeon Super Bowl broadcast, except for, I'm not against that because, maybe you have like a regular broadcast and like a fun broadcast, but you got to do something.
You got to do something. Here the one thing, the first thing I would do is bowl games are now NIL games, so you can keep people in them a little bit better.
Yeah.
They're now NIL games. Make sure that they're that. There's less of them. You have a higher threshold to get into a bowl game.
Agreed.
And then if you are a bowl game, you have to put on a show. And let me tell you, here's the show that we got. Here's what we got.
The Camping World?
The Camping World Bowl.
Was there tents involved?
No. We didn't even get a media event. There was no availability at practice.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, the guy that was running the thing, and Smokey got into it because we went and we're like, hey, what, there appears to be nothing on the schedule for us to do. When it comes to there's no open locker room. There's none of that stuff that's been at every bowl game.
Because I think the only way that we were able to get audio from Larry Fedora was through a I remember this now. Yeah.
There was one press conference with the two coaches.
Yep.
And that was it.
I remember this now.
So he was we were really mad because we're well, we came all the way out here. We're not allowed to go to practice. We can't we can go to the little hospital visit thing, but we can't ask any questions. Well, we're in the radio. How's that gonna this is the sound of Bryce Petty. It wasn't Bryce Petty. It was Seth,
I think at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was nobody. That was the game.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. This is the sound of Lynx Hawthorne. Taking a picture with a kid. No, that's silly. So,
click.
It was really, really bad. And the halftime show was Lee Greenwood, which
I'm proud to be an American.
Yes.
Lee Greenwood.
And here's the thing: he's saying I'm proud to be an American.
Well, you got to play the classics.
But then he sang 2 other songs.
I don't know any other songs he sings.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's one of those things all right, well, he sang 2 other songs, and you're all right. And then he sings "Proud to be an American." Great, fine, whatever.
That's what's his call home, right?
Yeah,
that's what he closed with. Okay.
But yeah, I don't look, I'm not going to McDonald's for spaghetti, so don't sing me other things. And that's where you have somebody more fun. You have it and then I do think that the bowl committee, because everyone, I can tell you, they send out surveys after a bowl game, and I can promise you that the 3 of ours were eviscerating to this bowl about
I do remember this
about how it was, and then not only that, it was so wood chipper-ish to it. I called some of the people hey, did you do the bowl survey? They're yeah, I'm not going. I'm no, please do it. They need to know how awful that was. Look, I've been to some pretty low rent, low rung bowl games, and the Texas Bowl will bend over backwards for you. These other bowls will bend, if you're in Phoenix, no matter which one it is, the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl, man, they really they want to make sure that you're enjoying your time in Arizona. And I think the city of Orlando was a little bit disappointed in the.
Well, it is the city of. Well,
it's great. It's people come there, and I think the people look, you're here for the bowl game for one day. You're going to Disney and Universal the other days.
And you have to think about that for Orlando. How many tourists do they have in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, we'll take a quick break right here. We'll come back. We're going to do. I want to talk. NFL Combine starts today, so we'll talk about NFL Draft. The actual workouts start today. It's been going on for 3 days, but workouts start today. Defensive linemen are today. and we'll talk about that in a second. Plus, I want a quick little opinion on Zach on this college basketball season and why his beloved Michigan State Spartans are a waste of his time this year for some reason.
I'll save it.
Yeah, all right. We'll get to that in a second. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high-heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sick'EM365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Once again, sorry for the late start today, as I sit alongside my longtime compadre, Zach Burke. And Zach works at Rogue Media. Rogue brought us here today, and we are at Pivovar in downtown Waco on 8th Street. We're a literal stone's throw from the silos, from Magnolia. Mm-hmm. I could stand outside this building and throw as many stones as I wanted to at Magnolia. I don't want to, but if I was so inclined, if there was a stone throwing contest, we could have it here.
Quick side story that made me think of, and I know you'll remember it as soon as I did. Do you remember when we went to Rangers Media Day and I threw in the bullpen?
Yes.
Okay, that was all. That's all I thought about with that.
Would you do you think that people would like to know like where Zach's pitches went regarding to in relation to where the catcher was?
I threw 2 pitches.
Yeah.
The first one, because obviously you don't realize how far away it is until you're there. I've heard other people say that, and I get it.
It's 60 feet, but yeah, I mean.
Oh, okay, fine. I mean, just let me have it. I'm telling the story. So the first one, it just kind of like bounced a bit to him.
Yeah.
Not just one hop, but still, I was like, all right, I need to put a little more in there. So my body decided to crank up a bit more when it threw, but my grip did not get the same note. And so the ball soared out of my hand out into the outfield, out from the bullpen, and almost hit somebody out there catching flies.
It did not register on the radar because it did not cross the radar. It went...
The first one did. That one did not even just clear out to the outfield.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Zach, before we get to the NFL Combine and the NFL Draft, I'm curious your thoughts on this college basketball season. We have, by the way, on the show today, if you're a college basketball fan, we are kind of loaded up on college basketball. We have Dennis Dodd. He'll talk more football issues with us. But we have Greg Wrubell, Kevin Flaherty, and Jerry Palm back to back to back. It's a Zach Burke show. It's a very much Zach Burke show. We have Off the Radar and Top 5. So that's who we've got, like, back to back to back on the show today. Here, and we, again, here at Pivo Bar, starting at 4 o'clock, they open the doors, happy hour all day. So coming in, fantastic beer. I saw, and maybe we should we should set this up. You can do a beer bath here.
Like, bathe?
Yeah, like they have. It's one of the things they have it in. I saw it on The Amazing Race one time. They I think they were in Czechoslovakia. I think that's where they were, and there were people sitting in tubs of beer. It was part of the thing they had to do to get their clue.
Straw it and
no, they're sitting in there. They're not drinking the beer. They're sitting.
I know.
They're drinking different beer.
But
they were drinking beer, and there's these older plump gentlemen, and they're sitting in there taking a beer bath, and you had to go in and you would say something to them, and they would here's your clue, and then they rip the clue open and read it.
I was like, clue, but you said it was Amazing Race.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
No, yeah. Pierre Nugent, who's our Monday host in Minneapolis, he's a big fan of The Amazing Race. He and I are going to figure out a way to get on that show.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. You think he and I would do well? You and
Pierre would do well.
We'd do well together. Yeah. My wife is always like, do you think we would do well? I'm like, no, I don't think we would. I think it would be certain things.
But you can't tell her that, though.
No, I think I need to.
Well, I honestly is always.
Well, part of the thing, here's the other deal. There's always some sort of, you need to eat and it's not sometimes it's a lot, but sometimes it's just a little bite of thing. Hey, you have to have this Norwegian fish dish.
Yeah,
to move on. She would not do it. She would just be like, Phil, I can't. We're gonna take the 2-hour penalty. All right, because you wouldn't eat fish. All right.
Well. I'm not gonna comment. I do think that Pierre and you would do great.
Yeah,
Pierre would eat fish. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I'm not. If I'm trying to win $1 million.
Oh yeah. No, there's a lot of things that I would do.
I'm gonna go for the gold. I'm not gonna get hung up on things.
No.
You just have to do it. It's a momentary thing. But your thoughts on this college basketball season, Zach? You're a big Michigan State fan. It's been a rough year for them, except when Baylor came to visit in Detroit.
True.
That was a good day for them.
That was strictly speaking. And I'll make it brief because I know I'm probably one of the only few people here that cares about Michigan State. And they haven't given you a lot of reasons to care about, especially this last week when you fall to Iowa and then Dale Bonner and Ohio State beat you on a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
And you have Purdue this weekend. So it's not going to get better. I don't know. I thought this was going to be a rough season when they opened up with a loss to James Madison.
Yeah.
That's just kind of not the way to do it. Then they had a little stretches where you think they get it together, but it feels like this is the time that usually Tom Izzo teams start to gel and start to come together because he is a guy and a coach that's been there a lot. But I don't get the same feeling this year. Part of me has a little bit of fear. I mean, I think they're the 6th team in the Big Ten right now. That we could look at a Michigan State team, if they don't get it together, that could miss the tournament. And that is weird. At least for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. All right. The rest of the country, you've got Purdue, you've got Arizona really good. UConn's probably the best team overall in the country. UConn and Purdue. They might be a shade over everybody else. Houston's fantastic.
Houston's really good.
I've seen them twice. Houston is 1-1 in my presence. They beat Baylor and they lost to Kansas.
I was right. You went to Fog.
Yeah, I went to Fog. And they didn't even play. Kansas beat the brakes off them. And it was more about Kansas playing so well and not Houston playing poorly. Houston had a couple of bad stretches of shots, but really overall, like, they turned the ball over 3 times and lost the game. Like, it was just one of those weird things. Like, it's anomaly. Like, they'll look back on that. And if you did like a blind taste test and like saw like some of the statistics, other than like, if you took out the shooting statistics of that game and you just showed like all the little things that teams do well, Kansas did not do the little things well. As a matter of fact, they let Houston back in that game, like, quite often just firing the ball 60 feet out of bounds, on fast breaks and stuff like that. Houston didn't do any of that, and they don't do any of that. They're so precise. So there are really good teams, but your thoughts on how this shakes out? Is this going to be a year like last year where we see some randomness in the tournament?
See, that got me last year.
Or do we see maybe more chalk in the tournament this year?
So... And obviously, this is just all my opinion as a college basketball fan who Paul beats every year at our pick'em. Last year was a little strange for me just because the teams that I thought were for sure going to be there, it didn't work out. It seems like some of the teams, once they got to the tournament, they kind of forgot how to play basketball. I thought that college basketball was drifting more towards a land of parity, where some of the teams that are at the top, Houston that's there, you look 6-7 years back and they're good, but they weren't that good. I think, at least to me, that this could be another tournament where it could be some of those teams that are good, that are good, but that will attack from like a 3 or a 4 seed that could potentially win the whole thing. I don't know why. That's just kind of the feel I get, because I think it's just the amount of good teams that you have this year across the board, where a team like Iowa State, who I think is a very good team, could be like a 3 or a 4 seed, and they could catch people like that. So as a whole, I think that there are a lot of great teams, but the teams at the top, I don't know why. It's probably part of my Big Ten bias. Not Big Ten, but Michigan State bias. I've never been able to fully believe in Purdue and Matt Painter there. And it's not to say that he doesn't do a good job, but once they get to the tournament, it feels like so often than not, they just never reach those limits that everybody thinks. Like, they can go 27-2.
He needs his Scott Drew moment.
Exactly.
He needs his, like, that breakthrough moment.
Exactly.
Like that one time where he does. And look, like, there's no reason for them not to be in the Final Four this year. Yeah. And there was no reason for them not to be in the Final Four last year, to be quite honest with you. And they found a way, to not be. And so that's something that's got to change for them, for sure. Absolutely. But I do think this year you might see a little more chalk. Now, I do think that UConn, they were a 4 seed last year. Mm-hmm. I think they were masquerading as a 4 seed.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've seen what they are this year, returning most of their guys and adding, obviously. And then, in addition to that, they had a ton of injuries in January and got off to this really weird start. And then they went on a tear, and no one noticed until it's like, oh, is it Final Four?
Yeah.
Is it Final Four weekend? Like, oh, they're here.
UConn's still here? Huh.
Yeah. What do you know about that? And everything else was so chaotic. It's just like you go back and you're like, how did this team wind up being, because they're so good, being a 4 seed? And then you look at like, well, January was weird. Mm-hmm. If you take January out of the equation for them,
that makes more sense.
Then they're probably a 2 seed last year.
But, and I don't want to say they snuck up on teams that way, but there's so much college basketball that's played every week that you might not think, like you said, their January was awful, and by the time they get there and we're into the Final Four weekend, like, oh, UConn's a good team and they're kind of here with us. Like, they kind of stuck around. I don't think they're sneaking up on anybody this year, though.
No.
And that's the thing, is I think obviously, winning last year, you have a target on your back. But I think if you remain, I think that everybody knows who the really good teams are. That's why I tend to believe that they're going to be, whenever somebody plays the number 1 seed, they're always going to give it their best, no matter who it is, whether it's, UMBC when they beat Virginia, or it's matchups later on. Like, you're always going to get it. So UConn's always going to get, somebody's best. That's why I always tend to think, or at least this year, those teams that are just kind of like right out there, and very much in the same situation as UConn was last year, of where it clicks right down the stretch. Like right now, like, watch for these teams. There's going to be a team that comes alive in the last week of the regular season in the conference tournament that is going to give people fits and will be a Sweet 16 team. I don't know who it is, but there's one every single year. It's teams that are able to put it together and get it to click right at the, right when they need to.
Yes. For those of you new to the chat, we are at Pivovar. It is not open right now. They have been very gracious to let us do our show here early, mostly so we could test things out and make sure. When you're broadcasting live video remotely, it is... It's
tough.
It's an adventure. It's an adventure. So they very happy to let us in here. They're going to have happy hour starting at 4 o'clock, which will be the rest of our show. So at 3 o'clock, you won't see anybody behind us, but at 4 o'clock, the crowd will start to triple in. It's a great place. They make their own beer here that's fantastic, lots of different kinds. So if you are here, Rogue Media, who Zach works for now, in about a month and a half, 2 months now?
December,
almost 3 months.
Yeah.
Almost 3 months. Zach works for Rogue Media, and they are a podcast partner. So all of our audio podcasts run through the Rogue Media Network, and they have taken a ton of work off our plate in that regard. So we are going to start doing some events here and there, when they come up. But Corey, the big boss man over there at Rogue, said, "Hey, can you guys go to PVR?" And we said, as long as we can broadcast from it, we can get video, and we're doing it. So it's all working here. They have a you see this really cool bar. The area we're sitting right now, they quite often, very often, most of the time, this is the first YouTube show they've had here. Most of the time, it's live music right up here on the stage in front of these mash kettles.
That's really cool.
Yeah, these fully operational mash kettles that we are here, although they're not mashing anything at this exact moment.
Yeah,
but they very well could.
Is that, I don't want to sound ignorant, but is that would they mash? I guess since they're mashing, they would mash things.
Yeah, I mean that's what they call it. They make a mash. They don't that's
that
what
makes,
they call it.
Yes. Okay, that makes more
sense.
sense.
I know there's different stages of how you do that. So,
that would okay.
Yeah, retired broker stockbroker says, "Get myself a long straw." Now you would not want to drink out of the mash kettle because it's not finished yet, and you would probably get sick and die.
Okay. Well, that seems like a
smidge
of a good idea.
Yeah. You would, though, want to drink out of these back here behind me. I don't know how well you can see them there's kind of a glare from what little sunlight we do have today. It's very cloudy. It's supposed to rain as well today. But
my kind of weather.
You can see it, and that's where they make, the brew, the fantastic beer that is in here. So
I'm gonna have to come back.
Oh yeah, it's they have great deals on like to go cans and 6-packs here that they sell. So yeah, it's great. So the next time you're in Waco, or if you're in Waco, I highly recommend this. I've been here a few times with my wife and some friends. It's a great place. The food's fantastic. So they have. They have all kind of board of fare, and the specialty is the schnitzel. Which, if you've never had schnitzel, I highly recommend it. You would like it. You would.
Yeah,
I know
sure
you.
I would.
You're you're German, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll like schnitzel. Like you. It's one of those things. If you've never had it, like you're a German American, like you'd eat it, and you'd be like, oh, well, I like this. I don't know why.
Yeah, I usually it tends to work out that way. That I'll probably.
Like I like this in really long socks. I don't know why.
I don't like socks at all, though. Like that's the thing.
Have you ever put on really long socks? Have you put on a lederhosen before? Have you done that?
No, I have not.
You have not done that?
I have not.
Like you don't even know. Like you could go to Germany and throw on a lederhosen, and then you'd be like, well, this is who I am. This is who I've always been.
I can't argue with that. I mean, I haven't done it, so I think it's one of those. I am of the belief that I'll kind of try anything once.
It could be like RuPaul's Drag Race, but for German things.
As long as I don't have to read anybody in lederhosen, I'm good. Oh man.
So but anyway, this is I say German. This is mostly Czech inspired fare here at Pivovar, because Pivo is how you say beer. And Czech, and var is how you say bar. I've learned 2 Czech words. I also know Yaksimash, and that's because of West, which is right down the road. There's a lot of Czech folks in West. All right, let's play in the last few minutes here. NFL Draft Rapid Fire. Zach, you can pick any team but your beloved Houston Texans.
Okay.
And we will talk about their draft scenarios here in the last 5 minutes.
Okay, so any team.
Any team. But and the only reason I say that is Royden was on the other day,
and he picked the Texans.
He picked the Texans. So
can I ask, did y'all decide on a first round pick? when they talked about it. I tend to think that
he wanted Cooper DeJean. So
okay. I tend to think of I'm leaning towards somebody that might burst through a wall and yell, "Oh yeah!" But
like me.
Yeah,
right
if
now?
you want to.
Like me right now?
I was honestly thinking of a cornerback out of Alabama, but yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like me, I'm his avatar now.
No. He's a little more red.
Yeah.
You're a little more orange.
Oh, yeah. People, yeah. Do you think there's going to be kids coming up to me later and being like, I love your drink. I can't believe you're really here.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so let me pick a team. You know who, let me pick somebody that nobody else will, and it's because I'm interested just because they're at the top of the draft. Can we go Chicago Bears?
Chicago Bears, number 1. Okay, let's talk about number 1 overall. And we're going to talk about number 9 overall because those are the picks that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 overall, Garrett and I agree that it's Caleb Williams, correct?
Yeah, I don't like that. I would trade. I would keep Justin Fields, trade and build around, but unfortunately, yeah, they're taking Caleb.
I tend to agree with him on that.
But by the way, Garrett is the new you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you were him, and now he's you.
So he's awesome.
Or you're the old Garrett.
No
I don't know what. I don't know how it works.
We'll make it work.
We're like no. We're like Green Lanterns. We just like get new rings, but we're still Green Lanterns. Yeah, we're our own
Garrett's
people.
cooler than us. He probably doesn't get that reference, but he's laughing. Yeah.
Okay. So he's Guy Gardner. Got it. I'm gonna double down on the nerdness.
By the way, there's some talk in the works of you and I doing a DC podcast.
I know, and I'm stoked for that.
Yeah. None of the people on this.
We're not going to talk about how we got the logo that looks like the Kingdom Come Superman, but we'll get to that at another time.
Yeah, that's another podcast another day. But
I tend to agree that I think it will be Caleb Williams number 1, but I think that it would benefit them more to trade down and build around Justin Fields.
Look, I just think that Caleb Williams can be so transformative. So, all right, let's get to number 9. And look, they're going to need a wide receiver to go along with DJ Moore. This is a really good wide receiver draft. I wouldn't say no to a good edge rusher if I'm them. I wouldn't say no to a good defensive back. There's really nothing I would say no to. I think everything's on the table for the Bears. Priority-wise, like on the line, maybe a little bit less and more for different things, but there's nothing I'm saying no to if I'm the Bears right now, especially if I'm drafting Caleb Williams. I'm deciding that he's the future of the franchise. I think I might try to get a wide receiver early on to kind of that's the pair I'm going with.
So Marvin Harrison Jr. is off the board by 9 though, right?
Yeah. So I just ran a quick little mock here.
Yeah.
And all 3 quarterbacks are off the board at this point. Marvin Harrison Jr. is off the board, and Malik Neighbors is off the board.
Okay.
So Roma Dunze falls in this spot really well. I think it might be a little bit of a reach on Keon Coleman, even though I love him like a son, even though we've never met. But look,
somebody should tell him about that.
If we ever do meet, I think it's going to be the one like you and Lederhosen. Like he's going to feel like this is how it should have been his whole time. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that if I'm the Bears, and I'm saying this as a Texans fan, that you have to make the moves that I think best work for your franchise when the draft happens. Everybody was hating on them at the time, and maybe that's just me being a Texans fan and thinking that of trading back up to get Will Anderson. But I think it benefited for them. They still have a first-round pick. It worked out. So
they don't do that if they don't have that in the back.
Exactly. I think that if you're the Bears, you looked at the season you have, and Caleb Williams looks nice, and he is probably he's the best QB. I think 1, 2, 3 QB. I don't know about where May and Daniels go, but I think if you're the Bears, you have more problems, and you just drafted Justin Fields a couple years ago. You're running to Jets territory of picking a QB, waiting a couple years, being like, no, never mind, drafting another one, or you're going to turn to the Browns where you just keep recycling through. If you believe Caleb Williams is the guy, is the end-all be-all, then for sure take that pick. But unless you're 100% convinced that, I think you trade down and you have a lot of other holes you can fill in.
They pretty much said that that's what they're going to do. That they're going to trade down, or not going to trade down, they're going to trade Justin Fields. Garrett is a huge Rome Odunze fan.
Oh, love Rome.
We chased him around. He's the only guy I think we legitimately chased around
him
at
and
the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
him and Penix, we tried to get him on, but we're rebuffed. So, we love Roma Dunze. This is a very pro Roma Dunze. I think Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams together.
Oh, that
would be
like,
nice.
If the draft, if like the Bears, couldn't draft anybody else after that, I think they would have a good day. Yeah, I think they have a good day. So I would say Williams and a Dunze in the first round is a good one. Well, Zach, guess what? Garrett, has he passed the test?
Definitely passed. Come back.
Yes, Zach has passed the test. He's in the rotation now as a co-host.
I don't know why I saluted, but
That's fine. No, that's what you're supposed to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
all right. Do I do that or do I do the tip? Like I feel more like Sam Elliott when I do the.
We should maybe do the tip because it's not really a military-esque thing.
That's true.
Obviously, I couldn't show up to muster, looking like a broken jar of tomato sauce.
I don't know why that's the one that got me. Oh,
but yes. So that Zach will be back. Thank you guys for being patient. We are here for the rest of the afternoon, on into the early part of the evening, here at Pivo Var. So if you are looking for something to do and come to dinner night here in downtown Waco, happy hour for the whole time we're here. I think it's happy hour all day, as a matter of fact. Great beer, great food, fantastic atmosphere right here in downtown Waco. You look behind me. It's a cool ass building.
Oh, very cool.
It's very cool. So beer made here on site. Like there, you're not like, it's not, this beer has never been on a truck. Only in its imagination has it been on a truck. This beer, maybe it met a Coors Light one time, and the Coors Light's like, I was on a truck. And he's like, what's that like?
But
no.
what it pictures a truck is not a real truck.
No, it's not. Like it doesn't know that. It's fresh made. It's all here. So that is what we're doing today. Thanks to Zach. Thanks to Jack. And I did that because it would rhyme. And of course, thanks to Garrett. Smokey and Craig will be here in an hour. We'll see you then. Basketball heavy on today's show. Hoop nuts should love it. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field